Every new trailer for Pokémon Legends Arceus has been introducing different types of new Pokémon left and right, that when Kleavor was released, I didn't even think it was an evolution. I actually thought it might be a brand new Pokémon. I even thought it might be some new form of prehistoric Kabutops that lived its days peacefully prior to human enacted extinction. However, apparently it was a branched evolution for Scyther, which was not what I guessed, but it made me think, with the new style, and features like all the new additions Pokémon Legends is bringing in, with new evolutions, new regional forms, and new noble Pokémon, we could be seeing Pokémon Legends Arceus bringing in brand new Generation -4 Pokémon into the game that aren't related to previous generation Pokémon, and thus, new Hisui and region Pokémon for the DLC Pokédex after Generation 8. I mean, I asked all one of my friends who they thought Kleavor was, and they thought it was new, so that's enough statistical analysis to assume it looks like a new Pokémon. That being said, with there being so many new Pokémon possibilities that this amazing open-world game could bring to the games, let's look at the top 5 new Pokémon that could appear in a region like the legendary Hisui region. Hope you enjoy the top 5 new Pokémon for Pokémon Legends Arceus. Number 5. A Dodo. One of the animal species that should be introduced into Pokemon is the extinct species of the Dodo. There's nothing like a game going 40 years into the past to revisit the time when extinct animals like the flightless bird lived. While there is a Pokemon called Doduo, that's not a true-to-life dodo, as not only can this bird learn fly, it's also alive and not dead. I even watched Ice Age, and that's not what they looked like. I also watched the movie, and that still isn't what they look like. To make a true-to-life dodo in Pokemon, we need to make it a normal type. I don't care if it has wings, it's not going to be a flying type. If you want it to dodge Earthquake, just give it Levitate. And to be completely honest, it should be weak to Earthquake regardless of what type it is. It couldn't even make it to the 21st century. What we need in Pokemon is more standalone joke Pokemon that don't evolve. This is the perfect type of Pokemon to have as a fun pop-up surprise to see to introduce a new Pokemon, especially if Pokemon like Weirdeer and Kleavor are popping up at the end of the Pokédex in between Generation 8 and 9. We'll call it Doodoo because this bird can't fly or learn to survive to the current time period. It sucks. Number 4. Goblins. There's nothing quite like an open world game that has starting route goblins appear and attack you from the wild. With this being a past version of Pokemon, and one that allows the Pokemon to attack you instead of just your Pokemon, this is a great place to introduce the brand new Pokemon species of goblins to randomly run at you and pick a fight when they're level 2 and you're at least 10. I remember when I was dropped into Lumbridge for the first time and saw the cute little goblins outside on the first route, and thought to myself, wow, what a cute little creature I'm allowed to click attack on. I surely hope they add this animal into Pokemon. And then I attacked it with my bronze scimitar and thought, what an experience! A goblin would fit incredibly well into the beginning of a journey where you popped out of a city in the age of medieval times and run into what looks like your ex. Now you might be thinking, what could possibly be the type for such a Pokemon? And I'll tell you, because I know what you're thinking, but it's definitely not fairy because goblins are closer to bug types than they are to fairies. For this little guy, we'll be giving it a pure normal type to start with. It'll have that typical normie goblin look to greet you as it runs at you as your first experience being born into a new world and seeing this abhorrent looking creature. It'll be a metaphor for life, as while it does look quite ugly, it is normal on the inside, but you can't seem to get past its first stage design. Once you grab a hold of this new Pokemon and get to understand it with each passing moment as the 65-year-old retired professor tells you to, you'll level up alongside it as it evolves from this green little mob into a fully evolved third stage of life normal fighting type to realize all along it had that fighting spirit. Instead of going the route of Impidimp and turning it into a hairy beast, it'll become a decked out goblin fighter that muscles its way through the mundane flowcharted path given to it by life and be one with its inner fighting spirit to continue. It'll evolve into its first evolution at 21, or 19 if you're Canadian, 18 if you're pseudo-French, and evolve once again, one final time, when its health drops to 1 HP in a battle, but still somehow manages to survive. From what looks like the child of the Hunchback of Notre Dame, to the Hunchback of Notre Dame, you'll see what life has to offer with each stage of evolution. Number 3. A humanoid queen. There's nothing like royalty to bring the whole family and country together. With nothing like socially acceptable dictatorship through a bloodline, why should we not have a new one in this ancient period of Pokemon? Even though we do have Nidoqueen, who can't breed with her Nidoking, or in general, not sure how that family is surviving, it doesn't have the same effect of a real humanoid Pokemon. Vespiquen is there, but she's another animal Pokemon with humanistic features, and realistically only the queen of poorly waged labor whose name does start wars, so I guess that pretty much is royalty. I'm just gonna play this part here.
Vespiquen.
It's Quinn. Replace that U with a W, and now it's Gwen. She's not even a queen, she's just a poser. The closest Pokemon we have to a human-like Queen Pokemon are Gothitelle, Hatterene, and Gardevoir. Not in that order, but it's basically the 3 Hecate from Yu-Gi-Oh! Season 0, so they can all be the 3 princesses, and we can create a legendary queen that binds them all. It would be sort of like Regigigas and the first 3 Regis until the 2 other came in out of nowhere. Gardevoir can even be the favorite, just like Regice is, as she was given the Fairy type edition amongst the pure Psychic types. I do like the feminine humanoid Pokemon, as it has a good, more inclusive style into Pokemon for everyone, and gives a graceful addition to most types. These 3 also do look like they can make their own trio of 3rd stage Psychic types for a Queen legendary Pokemon that's Psychic Fairy, and has a more human, elf-like look to astound the Hisui region with. That way you have that priority on the favorite princess, Gardevoir, who has a branched off 3rd stage evolution that's a knight that could be included in the royal family. It would bring together Pokemon from different generations to come together and add a royal charm into the mix to have a designated queen to Pokemon and not just a queen bee. Maybe even when the Goblin Pokémon evolves, it becomes knighted in its 3rd stage, puts on armor, and gains the egg group to breed with the elven-looking Queen's Pokemon's final evolution, as with time and learning through hardships, it becomes more deserving of this majestic beauty. It would also make sense because realistically Pokemon shouldn't breed in their 1st stage, even if they evolve at level 16. It's still incredibly sketchy to leave it with the higher level Pokemon in daycare, even if there are certain regions and egg groups that say otherwise. Number 2. A Manatee. As a marine biologist, I've always wanted to see a Manatee brought into Pokemon. While you might think Mantine and Mantike are manatees, they aren't, they're actually manta rays. And while others might think, I didn't even think that, I know what a manatee is, I played Earth, there's also Walrein and Miltank, so I'm trying to accommodate for all 7.7 billion potential... 7.7 is still right? 7.7 or so billion potential people that could be watching my videos, so I need to include every probable thought that exists and not just one frame of mind. As a marine biologist, I like to stick my hand right into the rabbit hole and pull out a golf ball of an idea so Pokemon can continue to shine with beautiful designs and not end up in the dunes like a beached whale. A Manatee Pokemon would be quite the special Pokemon to be brought into the games, and one that could really allow the sun to shine on this bright future of Pokemon that we have ahead of us with games like Pokémon Legends Arceus. While a nice 2-stage Pokemon could fit, I think this would be one of those pseudo-legendary looking Pokemon, as Pokémon Legends will be having its own sort of Pokedex to fit in Pokemon that don't just go in the side decks like Alolan forms did, and have their own spots like Corsola and Obstagoon. A new standalone Pokemon that looks fully completed the same way a single non-evolving legendary Pokemon does, but with the 600 base stats, would be an amazing new feature for this kind of game to introduce while expanding the requirements for pseudo-legendary Pokemon. It would also be a way of including something new and unique to catch that doesn't need a full-on story and just laying there and rest, noble in its own regard. If we wanted it to one day evolve but the stats are way too high to give it a regular evolution, then we can just Mega Evolve it or give it a Gigantamax. I don't know, they'll think of something. With the many ways to expand Pokemon, the Pokedex, and the same design over and over and over again, bringing in a new species of Pokemon like a Manatee would be a way to really spruce up your adventure through this Pokemon game. Number 1. One of the Pokemon species that I think a lot about are Pokemon that resembled old-time mythical creatures. Things like the Minotaur, the Centaur, the Zoomers, all mythical creatures of folklore that seem to be forgotten as time ticks away. The one species I really wanted to see in Pokemon is a Pokemon designed after a true depiction Gargoyle. For example, the cartoon show Gargoyles. Just look at that. There's so many designs that could work here. There's even the Goblin Pokémon. I didn't even see this until after I wrote the entire section. Pretty sure that's actually a Horn M from Yu-Gi-Oh! The best depiction of what I'd love to see in the Hisui region of Pokemon Legends is a rare 3 versions of Gargoyles, similar to this, except with a little less loincloth. I mean more cloth actually, less loin. You'd have the 2 standalone Pokemon with the male and female human-like Gargoyles that are completely different designs. One is a more defensive wall with higher physical attack and HP, and the other is a faster speeding physical attacker that has less defense and a bit less physical attack, but can still rush in quick and hit him hard. It would be the Xan-Yusa Viper pair rivalry with the helping hand teamwork of Plusle and Minun mixed together. This type of Gargoyle would be rock fighting, which is a very rare type, as the only Pokemon to use this is Terrakion, which does also seem to look a little bit like a Gargoyle too. But it just doesn't give the full experience, or is as historically accurate as this 90s cartoon. The third addition to this Gargoyle trio would be the little red guy that would be the middle evolution, who would be in between another potential pseudo-legendary Pokemon. If Kleavor is coming out rocking new armor, then we need someone else doing that to give a more official representation, that's a much less tacked on type compared to Tyrantrum, of the rock dragon typing. The powerful sentient dragon sculpted from rocks in its 3rd stage could wow the fans of Pokemon and create an amazing experience as we witness what goes on in this time period of the Sinnoh region. The defensive yet strong-willed rock dragon with its 2 humanoid rock fighters would make a wonderful trio that has a little something for everyone. If there's gonna be any new Pokemon that have never before been witnessed, that have no ties to any other generation, then this would be the kind of Pokemon and way that a company like Game Freak would bring into this new experience in a Pokemon open world game. Let's see if those Rhydon statues from Generation 1 were even there years before Red's journey in the new Pokemon Legends Arceus. Coming soon.